Dear listeners, welcome to this new episode of IP Stories. Today we are joined by Ann Chaplin, General Counsel and Corporate Secretary at Qualcomm. It was such a pleasure to speak with her. She is thoughtful, engaging, and incredibly passionate about innovation and IP. In this episode, we talk about her unexpected journey into intellectual property, the value of licensing and standard essential patents, and the inspiring initiatives Qualcomm is leading to make the patent system more inclusive. It's a conversation full of insight and inspiration, and I'm really excited for you to hear it.
Hello, this is IP Stories by 4IP Counsel, a podcast about innovation and intellectual property. Join us and you will hear about the journeys through invention, creation, and IP understanding of our guests.
I am Axel.
And I'm Marta, and today we have a very special guest, Ann Chaplin. And we know your schedule is packed, so thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. Let's start by getting to know you a little better. You are General Counsel and Corporate Secretary at Qualcomm, where you play a key role in shaping the company's legal and intellectual property strategy. But before we get into what your current job entails, could you share what initially drew you to study law and particularly IP?
Sure, it's great to be with you today. So thank you for having me. So when I went to law school, I thought I was going to be a public defender. I was very interested in speaking up and fighting for others. And so I went off to law school during my first summer. I went and worked in the public defender's office, and I represented people in court that summer every day. And what I quickly found was that it was not the best fit for me in terms of I was way too maternal to do that job. I worried so deeply about everyone, and they kept coming back again and again, and they needed help that was much beyond legal help. And I thought, oh no, like this is why I went to law school. What am I going to do? So after that first summer, I went back to law school and I thought, okay, I like being in court. I like arguing for others and fighting for others. So I'll try civil litigation. So the next summer I did that, and I told that law firm that I would do anything except for IP or insurance. They promptly put me through all of the groups, including IP and insurance. And shocking to me, more than probably anyone else, was that I happened to love the patent litigation. I loved it because not only did you have to learn the law and learn all of the legal things that I was in law school to learn and at the firm to learn, but also every time you have new technology. So you're learning all of these new things. And I'm a person that loves to learn, that would have happily gone to school for the rest of my life if that was an option in life that I could have afforded to do. And so for me, it turned out to be a great fit, was translating technical information into something that a jury and a judge can understand.
It's amazing how you might think that you are not going to be interested in something, and then it's quite the opposite.
So you started, having a successful career in private practice, but what motivated you to actually move to in-house roles at General Motors and later at Qualcomm? How did your perspective on IP strategy evolve during this transition?
Yes. So when that came up, when General Motors called and asked if I would head up their litigation group, I first said no because I wasn't looking to move. Right. I was very happy doing what I was doing. I loved private practice, and I loved doing patent litigation. But one of my dear clients had become the general counsel at General Motors. His name is Craig Glidden, and he's a wonderful, wonderful lawyer and a great person. And he was a really special client in terms of really pushing and really thinking outside the box and being creative. So when he called me with this opportunity, I said, I don't think so. He asked me to think about it a little bit. He asked me to come over and visit the company. And so he said, you should come. Even if you say no, you should come on over and see us and get to know us. So I came over to General Motors and I got to meet with all of the executive team, including Mary Barra, who's a phenomenal CEO. And then I learned about the legal challenge they were going through at that time. And they had a very significant litigation issue underway at that moment. They had their ignition switch litigation going on, and it was thousands and thousands of matters, none of which were IP. But it was a big issue for the company, and um, they needed help with that issue. They also really wanted help bringing that group back together and caring about the formation of that legal team. And so when I came over to General Motors just to learn about it, thinking it was very unlikely I would go there, after 2 days of being with them, I left feeling that I could help them and that I should help them. And honestly, it felt like a calling that I should do, which was never, it wasn't my intention. But I felt very fortunate to have the opportunity to assist them in a great time of need. And as a litigator, right, you look to solve problems. As part of why you become a litigator is you're trying to help your client through some of the most challenging times that they have had, and it felt like one of those moments. So I left my practice and my firm where I'd been for a really long time, and so many dear friends there, and picked up my family and moved over to Detroit and learned about auto and dove headlong into these cases. And the great part about it was in times of great challenge, right? It gets your absolute focus. And I needed to learn a huge amount of information about these kinds of cases, right? They were all very different from IP, and yet in lots of ways they're very technical, right? It's about how did the vehicle perform? How did it perform in this precise crash? And so really my IP background was helpful for that. And throughout my time then at General Motors, I got a great experience of moving from overseeing litigation, which was already very broadening for me, from patent litigation into all sorts of kinds of litigation, to then moving around throughout the department and getting to oversee different groups, including securities and M&A and product engineering and sales and marketing, and it went on and on. And so for me, it was really a great education from an in-house perspective. And my boss used to call it finishing school for general counsels, right? To actually see all of these different things. And what you find is when you go in-house is you suddenly have so much more context for the work that we do as lawyers, because you live it with your client every day, and is foundational to your business. And so it's not, throughout your career in private practice, you have the great opportunity to go from client to client to client. But in house, like, this is our client. It's like your family. You live it deeply. And so to have that experience and to add that context to my litigation background was great. And then to expand beyond litigation, it really makes you look at legal problems differently, because for IP, right, we are very deep in what we do, but it's a narrow field, but we're incredibly good at it. And when you go in house, you find that you're stretched and you have to broaden and you have to see the world more broadly than I was seeing it before. So that was a great opportunity for me to have that, to really stretch. And then when Qualcomm called, it was I also wasn't looking to leave. I loved it at General Motors. I was very, very happy there. And I still think very highly of them and have dear friends there. But when Qualcomm called, it was such an interesting fit of all of this preparation to be a general counsel that I've been going through a lot of diversification that we were doing at General Motors, a time of shifting to autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles. And here at Qualcomm, we've been going through diversification of our own. So beyond cellular, right, into automotive, into Internet of Things, into PCs, right, CPUs for PCs. And so it was a great fit, and it also gave me the ability to be at a company that deeply values intellectual property. And so in some ways, it felt like coming home. It was like bringing all of that expertise to my core background and bringing it together at a company where that is the focus.
And now, in your current role as General Counsel and Corporate Secretary in Qualcomm, what does a typical day look like for you? Because you just mentioned so many different areas and products, and it feels like you must be so busy. So it would be great if you could highlight some sort of key responsibilities and decisions that you oversee.
Sure. So part of the beauty of of the job is that no 2 days are the same, right? There are new things to be tackled in all of them. They're incredibly interesting. So the the diversity of the challenges each day that we face are really interesting. So I work very embedded in the business, as does the whole legal team. Our whole job is to enable that business, right, and to see where they're going and to help them plan ahead so that they know how, right, all of the legal contours of that, so that we can be out there and be successful with our products for our customers. And so we work on just a wide variety of issues every day. The largest part of my legal team is our IP department. We have just a world-class group that is really stellar at intellectual property and protecting the innovations that we create here. So we have a lot of that. We have a big licensing business that I'm sure we'll talk about. And so throughout the day, there's just all sorts of issues. And you can imagine that I wake up every day and read the news and see new issues that I will be dealing with on any given day. And so, right, so long before you leave the house, you know new things that will be added to your calendar that day to address those. And so, so my job is to really be the legal eyes embedded in the business, along with my team, to really help support this business and adapt to all of the legal challenges that arise and geopolitical challenges that arise, and help the team through that, just so that we can best serve our customers. It was a great experience to have that broad experience at GM across that group, to be able to spot those issues and look ahead. And then to be able to help our teams, even in how we design and create our products and bring them to market, so that we're always getting ready to move quickly.
That's very, very important what you just said, because at 4IP Counsel, what we try to do is to educate everybody to really learn about the value, the benefits of IP in general, cross-sector, cross-industry. And what I know is you have been a vocal advocate for increasing participation in the patent system. That's something we are trying very hard at 4IP, because you need to be educated, you need to know what it will bring to be willing to participate to it. But could you discuss Qualcomm's initiatives to foster increase in votership?
Sure, I'd love to. I think so. I find this area so interesting. And the reason I care about it is because there's so many challenges in the world, and yet there's so many phenomenally bright people all throughout the globe who have the ability to help us solve those challenges. And yet, to bring their ideas forward, they need to understand the system. Right. And so I grew up in a family with no lawyers. I would not have any clue about patents and how to get them. Right. And so part of what we try to do at Qualcomm is to bring that education piece that you are working on as well out to more people. Because if people understand how to bring their great ideas forward and therefore seek patent protection for them, which we all know makes it public and then available to others, right, either through licensing or after the patent expires, right, we know that it can bring a lot of good forward. And so but I think it's a system that a lot of people don't understand, and especially if they don't have access to patent lawyers or to understand when they need a patent lawyer, and also even what that might cost and what that system looks like. It's also a unique process when you consider that the first thing that happens when you apply for a patent is you probably promptly get sent a rejection. Right? It's an odd process that we in IP are used to, but I think most people would find very disheartening, or may take as, oh, I guess I didn't have a patentable idea, when they really did. So I think it's really important that we who are in this industry can help educate more people to understand that process so they can participate and bring their ideas forward. At Qualcomm, one thing we work to do is really educate our employees about that process and demystify it and let them know who we are, right? Who we are in the IP department, so that we can help them and just give them an overview of how it works and how they work with us and how we can support them. So that's been an important part for us. We work like with our employee resource groups also to try to expand that messaging and bring more people into the patenting process, to speak up for their innovation. Because I think there's so many people that actually have great ideas that just don't realize that they should bring them forward, or they want to bring them forward, but they need help feeling confident to do that. So we want to demystify it by bringing that information to them, and trying to support it. We've also advocated for more transparency, and tracking, like say with the U.S. Patent Office, to even know like who all is, the demographics of who are seeking patents, because there's really a failure of information out there. And I think as more and more people see that opportunity, they then can see themselves operating within it too. So that's what we've been doing at Qualcomm internally. We also worked to found a group with others, a consortium called Invent Together, to bring together other people that want to bring more innovation forward, right, and help support more people becoming inventors. And we've been really active with that program also, and bringing resources outside of Qualcomm through that.
Okay, I really want to know more about this collaboration. So, I've seen how with Invent Together you launched the Inventors Patent Academy. Could you tell us more about this program and its success bringing more inventors into the ecosystem?
Sure, I'd love to. So with Invent Together, we created an online program called the Inventors Patent Academy, which we like to call TIPA. I'll try to call it the Inventors Patent Academy instead. But it's online and it's completely free and it's available to everyone. So it's focused on the U.S. patent system, and it's available just to anyone online. So any solo inventor, a small or medium-sized enterprise, to students, right? Law students, college students. I've got college students of my own at home, right? Engineering students, and also in a company, anyone can use it. And so, what it's really trying to do is just help innovators understand how they can get patent protection and tell them how that process works, so that it gives them an option to do this. So I will tell you, I share it with people wherever I go. I've shared it with my Uber driver recently, who was a PhD physics student and who had a phenomenal idea. So I promptly told him that he should look into patenting it. And when he told me he didn't know how, it promptly said, you should go home and Google the Inventors Patent Academy. It is free, right? And so no one has to call Qualcomm for this, right? It's just available online. It's an e-learning tool. We've had thousands of people use it already. So we're really excited about that, because our goal is to help others innovate. So it's been such an important part of our company, and we feel that it can be really important for others as well. And we wanted to help bring that resource forward.
Okay, we will definitely make sure to share the link as well with the episode because it sounds really amazing.
Thank you.
That will fix many issues for the SMEs that we are speaking with, especially in Europe. We don't have such a tool, and many times they just reach out to 4IP Council with all the education tools that we have and say, okay, what is in IP for me? So why should I spend money and time? And why my engineers just don't want to do any filing? They are not interested in IP. So I think this tool clearly will be something we share with all the participants and the company we are working with.
So you have mentioned concepts like licensing and I believe standards, but there might be some listeners that are unfamiliar with these concepts. So it would be great if you could explain the importance of licensing and standards at Qualcomm and in general in the tech industry.
Sure. So for us, it's incredibly important, right? At Qualcomm, we've invested over $100 billion in research and development. And it's been nearly 20% of our annual revenue since 2006 that we put into foundational R&D. And we put it in an area that's very, where not a lot of people do what we do around the world. And it's been incredibly important as our way to bring these innovations forward into this ecosystem, where then all sorts of companies are able to license it and utilize it. So we have a portfolio of over 160,000 patents and pending applications. It's incredibly important to us. A huge number of them are standard essential patents, where in a standards body, all sorts of people bring forward ideas, and there is a right, and there's a debate, and by merit, people select what things should go into the standard. So picture we have a global standard, picture 5G, so that all of our devices, right, when we travel around the world to see one another, that they actually work and that they work on a global standard so that you don't need a new phone when you go to different places, so that we all have the benefit of, for consumers, of it working consistently. And so for there to be this ecosystem on which then all sorts of wonderfully successful companies have grown using that, right? And we all see them all the time. Picture the phone manufacturers around the world. So we are able to do this high risk R&D where some things work and some things don't. We bring forth all of these ideas into standards, or many of the ideas into standards bodies, and some of our innovations are chosen to be adopted into the standard. And on those where we have a patent, then they're considered standard essential patents. And when you have a standard essential patent, you're required to make it available for licensing on fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms. So that's what we do. And we then have been able to license a huge number of people to our innovations so that they can bring them forward to consumers. Our innovations are found in over 20 billion devices around the globe. And we're excited to have really operated as sort of a R&D arm for the industry, because our innovation we don't just keep for ourselves, right? In this area around these innovations for cellular communication, we've we've offered them into standards. They've been selected from the multitude of ideas that were available for the standards. And then people have come to license our portfolio of standard essential patents. And so the reason it's so important in many ways is, first, we got to bring it to so many people, right? And so many companies have had the benefit of it to the advantage of consumers. But in addition to that, it's a cycle, right? The only way that you can invest $100 billion in research and development is if you get patent protection for your innovation, because no company would be able to make such an investment if everyone else could just copy it afterward. So no one would do that innovation. So the way technology gets moved forward is with the benefit of intellectual property. Because for people to make that investment, some of which works, some of which doesn't, if anyone could just steal it and use it later, you innovation would the technical innovation would stop moving forward, because no one would want to take the expense just for everyone to free ride on the system. And so I think, and look at when you see it, look at when we went through the pandemic, right? The fact that we all got vaccines so that we could get back to our normal lives and be back with one another, right? If people can't have protection for that innovation, who's going to make the investment the next time? And so to us, I think it's critically important. And for us, we then take those proceeds of the licensing and we reinvest them in our research and development. And through that, we've been able to bring a huge number of innovations from 3G to reach 4G to 5G, and now we're working on 6G. And we just feel that we've been able to really help the entire ecosystem in this way. We're excited to be able to offer our patents then for licensing on those FRAND terms, right? The fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms. And it's enabled an ecosystem that has been wildly successful for all sorts of companies, and in a way that we as consumers use every single day.
That's great. When I listen to you, I have the feeling that I understand licensing, star essential patents, the friend terms, but I know that not everybody understands this, and it is complicated. But it works for the last, at least for the last 30 years. So uh, my question is, what are the biggest misconceptions about standard essential patents and the fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms?
So it is something that only at a company like Qualcomm do people walk around talking about SEPs, right? Standard essential patents, right? And so I think it's good that we kind of step back. And it's important to remember, like, they are patents too, right? They had to go through they had to go through all the patent process to be right, for each claim to be found patentable, um, just as any other patent. But then not only did they go through that patent process, but they also had to go through the standards body to see if they were adopted into the standard. And right, and we don't decide that, right? We're one member of the right. We're a member of the standards organizations, but all sorts of other companies come together, and more small and medium-sized enterprises have been participating in the standards bodies also. I think their participation has more than doubled since 2015. And also, it's a global standard, right? So you have companies from all over the world too coming together to try to make it so that the standard on which we're all going to work will actually make our devices better, right? Will make our ability to communicate with each other better. So I think that's an important part to understand. I also think that people, I often hear a misconception that people seem to think that there's a huge amount of litigation around standard essential patents. And I'll tell you, as a patent litigator for decades, right? They're not right in most of the patent litigation in the world is not standard essential patent related. It's just patents, right? Non-standard essential patents that are at issue. And really, when you look back, the amount of standard essential patent litigation has actually decreased since 2014. And apparently, I think it was 2021 that was the historic lowest year of standard essential patent litigation. And so, in lots of ways, we have this system that works really well because the people that own standard essential patents are under FRAND obligations, which is the way in which we then offer our licensing to other people. And the vast majority of the time, that takes place just fine without litigation and in ways that our licensees can use the benefit of our innovation for a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory price. Also, you've seen it expand into other areas. Coming from automotive, I like to use that one, right? Because now, too, we have a licensing program for automotive because your vehicle has become connected, which brings you a lot of benefits, safety benefits, connectivity. My kids like all of the entertainment features of it too, right? And so I think that when you look at how we have been able to bring innovation into whole new industries in ways that will be important, right? The automotive companies see the benefit of them having connected vehicles and the automotives as a platform to bring new services to their customers. So we're excited to get to be a part of that and enable that through this program. But I think the value of standard essential patents is very significant, that we all benefit from all the time, with most people without knowing it, but that there's a misconception that it's very adversarial, whereas most of the time it's really not.
Okay, I think you explained it so well. At least for me now, it's a lot clearer. And my next question is, what do you see as the most significant challenges that companies will encounter in the coming years, particularly concerning IP and innovation?
So I think looking forward, I'd say a couple. The one I worry about the most is just I do feel that there's some number of companies out there that really want to attack intellectual property and devalue intellectual property. And I have concerns about that as a right, just as any person on earth I think should care about that, because I believe that innovation needs to move forward and that we need to continue to solve the problems of the world, right? Through all sorts of different fields all over, right? As a mother, I care about that, right, too. And I think that you see it. I think some people who want to utilize inventions made by others and not pay for them try to feed into lessening the protection for IP. And I believe if you don't have a functioning patent system, that innovation truly will suffer. That I think the innovation will slow down, which would be bad for all of us. You know, in the United States, we have our Constitution actually covers patents, right? And it's because it's so foundationally important to have that protection to support innovation. So I think that's one thing that I watch constantly. I think we also stand at a really interesting time around AI, right? With artificial intelligence and how that works with intellectual property. And the rules are obviously still continuing to develop. And I think just as it took time for people to understand how you could use a computer and still be an inventor, right? How all of that will come together and how much the individual needs to be involved will modify. So we pay a lot of attention to all of that. We spend a lot of time training our engineers about when they cannot use artificial intelligence, right, for part of the process,
Mhm.
etc., and what's protectable and what's not. And I think that we're at a time of change in our
Mhm.
system, so we'll have to be watching that. But overall, I'm excited because the system really works and has a long, long history of working and supporting innovation moving forward. And so, what we watch for is just we we are concerned if people are trying to hamper intellectual property rights because of the damage that can do to innovation. Because if you stop, for instance, if you stop the licensing, if you stop giving people patent protection such that they can no longer license or get revenue for their inventions, then all of a sudden you don't have that money to invest in research and
Of course.
development anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it makes total sense. I just want to quickly announce to our audience that we have a new AI corner on our website where we tackle a lot of these issues regarding AI and intellectual property and all the questions that are still to be solved, some of them, and different solutions from different countries. So, just to invite you all to go check it out.
Let's try to look back at your career, and maybe that's something maybe more personal, but what moments have been the most rewarding for you?
So, I'm at that phase of my career where you look back and you reflect on it, and there's it's a great first we're fortunate to be in a wonderful profession where you actually get to help others every single day for your job. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing that we get to do and to actually speak up and help other people. So when I look back, right, you have the moments of where you really believe so deeply in something and you took it all the way to verdict, right? So all those jury trials all over, right? So I always remember those because there's so much that happens long before you get in there, and you have to believe it with your entire heart that it is the right thing to fight that all the way through. And so obviously those are moments that are exciting and noteworthy and that you've spent years on, all because you believed it was so important to spend all of that money and take all of that risk. And so those are big moments. But also when you think about just all of the things that we've gotten to do to just enable the company, right? Whether it's a key acquisition that the company was having, whether it's protecting these critical inventions, whether it's also the way you work with people every day such that they realize that the legal department really is integral to how they do their work, that we're not there to get in the way, we're there to enable them to make sure we all do it the right way and actually get where they want to go. And so that's really deeply satisfying. And then in my role too, to have had the opportunity to lead teams, which is not something they teach you how to do in law school, but I do it because I care about people and their development, and I think in lots of ways one of the most satisfying parts of the job is to watch your team members grow and develop and thrive in ways that they didn't even realize they could do. And so to see the potential in people and to support that and grow that and to help stretch them, and expand their horizons of what they saw their career to be, is one of the most satisfying things as well. Like, I'm so proud of the team that I work with. They're so incredibly capable. And together, I think we come together to really help stretch and grow and continue to improve. So I think really, when you look back, you I still grow as a lawyer every single day, and I'm super thankful for that.
It's so great to have a good team that you are well connected with, and as you were saying, to have that interest as well on making sure that they thrive with you. I think it's true that it's something that you don't really get taught in any school, and for some of us, is a very good surprise.
It is, and I'll say I think we all recognize that law is also a demanding profession,
Hmm.
right? That it is, you put in a huge amount of time to be truly expert at what you do, and you carry the weight of the needs of your client on your shoulders when you do it well. you really deeply care, and which can be a stressful thing,
Yeah.
right? And you end up putting in a very large amount of time to do what we do. And yet, when I think about even kind of the most stressful times of that, it's usually when you're doing the things that are the most important for your client. And so, years ago, I had a boss who would come um, in the evening and he'd say, "Are we loving the law today?" And I always try to remember that because even when it's hard and even when that stress is there, right, you have to remember that we're in this amazing profession where we have this opportunity to help other people. And everything that you are doing is to solve a problem. It's what we do, whether you are making sure that you get the key patent, whether it's that you need to win the lawsuit, whether it's that you need to make sure that we complied with all of the privacy regulations in how we do this particular
Mhm.
product. All of those things are problem solving. And yet we should remember like that it's actually a lot of fun, and it's a to be entrusted with other people's um, problems to be able to help them with is something that is a great part about our profession. So I do try to remember to love the law each day.
There is one thing that is striking me is I have a daughter and she's 9, and I try to explain her innovation. I'm an engineer, so I'm talking a lot about all those, new stuff, new things that we are creating and working on. And I see that you are a very good role model. And I believe, girls in STEMs need to have role models. And you're the perfect blend. You're explaining things very, very um, simply and clear. So thank you very much for that. But my last question will be, what guidance would you offer to individuals aspiring to build a career in intellectual property law and just doing, you know, uh, IPR in general?
So I appreciate your kind words on that. And I think that I do think that as a parent, right, you find yourself really working to inspire your children to know that they have so much capability within them and that we want to hear their ideas and that they have a lot to contribute. And so I think that us being vocal about that is important. I also think that, um, you know, I'm somewhat unique in intellectual property in that I don't have a technical background, whereas most people in our field do. And so I feel very fortunate to have gotten to develop in this profession and to have had just happened to have been at a law firm that actually allowed non-technical lawyers to still show that they have the aptitude to do intellectual property litigation. So I just share that so that people who don't have a technical degree also realize that they can participate in intellectual property, even on the patent side, because at some point you have to be able to explain it to other people. You have to explain it to the judge. You have to explain it to the jury. And if you are, um, I always say I'm not technically degreed, right, in an engineering, but I am very interested in how things work. And for each case and each matter, I spend the time to learn it. And so I think it's really important for people to remember that they too can do that and that they have all of these options because my kids are 22, 20, and 17. And so they're all at that age of, right, I've got some in college and trying to figure out what they're going to do. And they all have different interests. But what I want them to know is that they actually have a huge array of opportunity ahead of them to find what helps them to thrive, but also then once you're in whatever field you are doing, to realize that, well, we're all very focused on what the issue is we're working on at that moment. There's all of these other things happening. And so to allow yourself to be stretched and pushed into new areas. When I look back at my time at General Motors, for instance, when I was in litigation, and I remember the moment when I thought the people had come up under me to do litigation and that I should get out of the way. And I moved over to another group. And lots of people, in life just want to move up. And there are times you have to realize you need to move over to make room for other people. And also so that as you move over, you are growing as a person. You are pushing yourselves in new areas. And each of those areas that you add helps expand your abilities and makes you better at what you're doing. Whether you're engineering in a particular precise field and you then all of a sudden, right, AI comes in or these things, and you have opportunities to push into other areas. So I have found in my career that so much of it has been just because I was willing to try new things that were outside of my comfort zone and to say yes to those and to try to help. So wherever you are, I think we all have an ability to make it a better place, right? To make it a better department, to make it a better product, to be a better colleague, to help other people improve. And so I just think you need to recognize the opportunities that you have and to not be afraid to let yourself step into something new on which you aren't already an expert. Because lots of us, especially people in law, right? A lot of people in law are perfectionists. I struggle with it myself. And yet it's okay to step into something new and to not be perfect at it. And none of us is perfect at anything. And so to continue to grow and push yourself. And I think that's what leads to a really exciting career, is knowing you have all this opportunity. So as we look at our kids, or as I look at members of my team, like they all have so much potential and they've already done so much, but there's so much more that they could do if it's of interest to them. So I think that's my message to people is, when I look back, everyone in my family thought it was crazy that I even wanted to go to law school. My mother said, why would anyone want to do that? Right. And so, but for me, it was the right thing. And so to just know that you can really push and you can find your way, but that your life has all sorts of opportunity ahead. And so I just hope that people take advantage of that and actually enjoy it along the way.
Thank you. I love this message.
Yeah, I think it's a great message. You just never know where life is taking you, and as you just said, you have to take the opportunities.
Thank you so much, Anne, for all those answers. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your kindness.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was our pleasure, and thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to IP Stories by 4IP Counsel. Visit our website on 4ipcounsel.eu to find out more and check out the links mentioned during this episode. If you liked it, remember to share and subscribe.